Hi, Jessica.
Here we go.
Thank you very much. Hey, good evening, everyone. This is the call to order of the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting agenda scheduled for Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. This is an online virtual meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everybody could please rise. I pledge allegiance
Pledge
to the flag
allegiance to the
of
flag,
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, let's kick it off with a roll call. We're going to start at the end of the room where Josh would be sitting. So Josh, if you could start us off.
Joshua Dykstra.
It's the Brass.
John Kerwin.
Dave Sauter.
Jack Pocherello.
Dan Wall.
Brett Olbrys.
Jesse. Okay, I don't hear Jesse.
I didn't
Jessica.
see Jessica Pennell.
Kevin McSherry.
Steve McCary.
Okay, thanks. Did you hear anything from Jesse? Jess, I'm sorry.
I didn't hear anything.
No. I didn't hear anything. Okay, so we'll see if he has a chance to jump in. I'm not going to see an alternate right now. We don't have any action right now, so you are going to be listening to what looks like a pretty straightforward agenda. One note that I just wanted to throw out to you folks, I haven't received it in writing, but I had a phone call last week, and Mary Lepresti is actually moving out of Oxford. So she is going to be resigning from the commission as an alternate. So we'll have to work with the first selectman to get a new appointment in there. But she sends her best to everybody, and she was a great person working with. Wish we could have had her around longer, but you know, she's on to bigger and better things, and she's going to be, like I said, moving very shortly, and her time is kind of focused on that. So on behalf of the commission, just so it's on the record, but thanks to Mary for all of her contributions while she was with us.
And I just want to say on the record, what's bigger and better than Oxford? I mean, come on.
I'm just going to leave it at that. So I love it. I love it here. Okay, so that's what's happening with the roll call, the seating of the alternates. So going through the agenda, everybody be prepared to take notes here. Seating public hearings, recessed public hearings, none. New public hearings, none. Future public hearings, none. Moving on to regular meeting business. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No.
None?
Matt.
Okay. Audience of citizens. Is there anybody in the audience of citizens that would like to bring up something that is not listed on tonight's agenda?
Yes,
And who said yes?
Thomas Beard.
Hi, Mr. Beard. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Thomas Beard, 149 Newgate Road.
Thank you. You have the floor.
So I had made several complaints about New England Septic. And they have 2 cease and desists, and they keep operating. I have several more pictures of them transferring the sewage from one truck to another. They think they're smart. I also have several more pictures of them washing their trucks and not containing the water. It's a state statute and nothing's being done. You gave me a cease and desist. You just tried to put me out of business. They have 2. I want to know, why are they operating? Why is the town not enforcing the cease and desists? What's being done? It's like they can do whatever they want to do. Well, I'm here to tell you that they're not going to be able to do whatever they want to do. However you guys want to get there, we'll get there. They got 2 cease and desists, and they operate business as usual. Why isn't this commission doing anything about it? Can somebody answer me?
I think it's something that we're not going to be able to answer right here on the fly, Mr. Beard. It's something that we would have to go back and and see what's happening, because I understand that there's been some complaints. I know we had responded back in terms of some of the complaints in terms of the best way to proceed. So what I would do for the meeting right now is I jotted down some notes while you were talking. It's something we'll bring back up with our zoning enforcement officer and council and respond to you, outside of the meeting.
How many
wanna-
cease and desists do they need before the
It's-
town's gonna take some kind of action?
Like I
They
said,
have two. Do they need 10 or 20? One should be sufficient.
like I said, you're bringing it here to the commission, and this is going to be our chance to go back and figure out exactly the steps to take with it and find out what's going on. And I promise you that we will definitely respond back to you, but it's not something that we're going to investigate or pull apart right now. This is a chance for, you brought up a concern, and I'm happy to have the commission and our CEO take a closer look at it, and we'll follow up.
So when or what will the follow-up be?
I can't answer that until we actually go ahead and take a look at what you've written down here, and I'll verify what we have on record in terms of what's going on.
Well, you have the record, you have the cease and desists. Why can't it be enforced?
Well, Mr. Beard, like I said, without, where we are right now, we're going to take a look at your concerns that you brought up, and we're going to follow back up with you. I mean, that's the best that I can do here in this particular forum. It's not something that we're going to, resolve and go through and everything along those lines right now. This
How
isn't
many
the
more
right forum for
complaints
it.
do I have to make? I mean, I've put it in writing. I've been to the town hall. I mean, what more as a town citizen do I have to do to get some action taken on an illegal business and running a transfer station is sewage? I just boggles my mind that it's like deaf ears.
Yeah, and Mr. Beard, I know you've already asked that question. It's been answered. We will follow back up with you offline.
I hope that you do, Commissioner. I hope that you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in and letting us know, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience of citizens that has something that they would like to bring up that is not listed on tonight's agenda? And going one more time to the audience of citizens, is there anything from the audience that would like to bring up anything that is not listed on tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Correspondence, is there any correspondence, Mr. Secretary?
Oh, excuse me, no, sir.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to catch you off guard there, so.
That's right.
Old business matters on which a public hearing was held, none. Old business, other matters, none. New business, schedule a public hearing, none. New business, we don't have any new business to discuss tonight. Zoning enforcement, we don't have anything listed here. Which brings us to the minutes. We do have minutes that need to get approved from a prior meeting for April 20th, 2021.
I move to accept the minutes for 4/20/2021 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And there's a placeholder here where Jess is going to have the meetings from the May 4th meeting for at our next gathering. Moving on, we have invoices from one invoice from the McSherry Law Office. This is a breakdown of Kevin for the time frame. Looks like for March 1st through May 11th.
Yes.
And it's also a consolidation of planning and zoning as well as inland wetlands. The planning and zoning total represents 11.5 hours for $2,185. So I would entertain a motion to,
Dave,
So moved.
I got a question. Hold on a minute. I got a question on this here, Billy. Why is plan and zoning paying for the, I mean, the lawyer got to get paid, I understand that, but shouldn't, like, this New England Septic, isn't that their bill that should be charged to them instead of plan and zoning and Copper Mine Road and the De Silva one? Shouldn't those three be charged back to the applicant? I mean, if you look at New England Septic, they're supposedly transferring stuff and breaking regulations. And why should we have to pay an attorney to go after them? They should be paying that. And same thing with Copper Mine Road, the cease and assist on that one. I just don't understand why planning and zoning or the town has to pay for regulations that are broken that we're trying to follow up on.
Jess, real quick question for informational purposes. Do we typically, are these screened where we would actually, like, we would pay Attorney McSherry and then go back and collect on, you know, on the back end for anything that's applicable?
In some situations, yes. I guess I don't know that I've ever billed for, I mean, if it's a zoning violation, I would have to go back and look and see what we've done in the past. I don't know if anyone, if Pat, if you know if we've done that in the past.
My only question is, you know, if we were allowed to bill the applicant for services, for outside services. So other than in litigation, I would think that an attorney's review of an application and so on is an outside service, but I'm sure there are people here that could be more informed than I am on that subject.
My question is, why would the town want to blow money? If we can't recoup this money we're spending for an attorney, why bother following up on these regulations? Because the perfect example is Tom Bear. He's been, this is going on 3 months with New England. Last time I heard, it was transferred over to the health department. They were supposed to be taking care of this. And now we got to pay. Don't get me wrong, Attorney McCary, you know, you deserve the money, but I'm just saying words.
I don't really have a problem with any of the discussion. It's an appropriate discussion. Legal fees certainly address many issues, and if you don't get into litigation, that you can't often recoup them just on the say-so, because it's not treated as a typical engineer or someone that the town has to hire. Those are specific to the regulations. Some of these things that have been around a little bit require some research into getting all the details before we take a step that may be the wrong step on behalf of the town. So I am looking at a couple of those issues and researching them in a thorough manner before I advise the commission on what the best way to go is. So sometimes I have to look a little bit at the steps that have already been taken and prior information, and then recommend the best way to take some steps.
Thank you, Attorney. So, I mean, I'm flexible with this. If somebody has, you know, if there's, you know, concerns or whatever, and you just want to double check to be sure there's something that should not be invoiced back, then I am, yeah, fine. We can table this till the next meeting and take a closer look at it. That's definitely an option as well too. We take a motion. You know, I think somebody already made a motion. Actually, no. The question came in first, so that's no. We're still in discussion.
Okay.
So,
I made a motion.
I'd move to pay if nobody can come up with any reason why they shouldn't. I mean, they're legal fees. Unless there's an application pending where the regulations say that you can charge back to the applicant, then we have to pay the attorney. That's, you know, we would either be paying our land use attorney or town council would be stepping in. But those are services that were rendered, and there's no provision to charge back for research on, like Dominic Thomas's application that came in that didn't have an actual application. He didn't have standing. That's one of the reasons why we don't pursue those kind of things. You know, I think Attorney McSherry had to actually expend some resources on that matter. And that's just something that the Planning and Zoning Commission, that our budget has to eat.
cost of
So
doing
I would move
business.
to pay.
Well, that's, I guess, is the question, is the things that are relevant to applications, are they charged back the way engineering fees are?
No, those are, the legal counsel is different than professional services. So unfortunately, we can't charge for our legal fees. And Attorney McSherry, jump in,
That is true. I've never seen that happen at any commission I've ever represented in the last 40 years or so. So
the grievance committee might want to hear about that if you did start charging for those. So.
yeah, that'd be a pretty good deal. Jeez.
Hey, Dave.
Well, my motion stands then.
Well, just a point of order that there have been two first but no seconds. So at this point,
Well, the Pete cut off the first. Pete was interjecting with a question, so I didn't recognize the first motion, and I went with the question that had been started at the same moment.
okay.
So now the question has been asked and answered. We've had the discussion. Now we have a motion
I'll
that
defer
John
back to
just
Pat.
made.
Yeah, or defer back to Pat. I think it was the same motion, right?
Motion to pay our share.
Motion. Okay, so then Pat will take the motion to pay.
Yeah, this is Dan. I'll second that. I
Dan,
didn't realize the
second.
motion was, I didn't realize the motion was made, though, so I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Okay, other business. We have a short presentation today from Oxford Energy Center. And I wanted to kind of tee this up. Is it Scott Connick? I want to make sure I pronounce your name the right way, Scott.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, great. So we'll kick it over to you in a second, but welcome. Scott's here to give us a presentation about the Oxford Energy Center. I'll let him go into all of the details in terms of what that project entails and what's happening. And it's going to be a kind of a short presentation. I wanted to give, from a commission perspective, consider this a polite heads up. We have gone through, in terms of when he reached out to us, and we kind of vetted it a little bit. And I'm going to ask Scott, while you're talking, if you could explain it to us explain it to the entire commission as well too. But there's really nothing for us to decide here. This is going to end up with the siting council. So this is not this. Go ahead, Pat.
No, go finish.
Okay. So this will end up with the siting council, which is going to have exclusive jurisdiction over this. This is, basically heads up for our informational purposes only. We're not going to be having any deliberations. Because there's no application. There's no, there's nothing to endorse or anything along those lines. I think it's important, though, to know what's happening. And, if you have a question, a technical question or something you want to clarify in terms of something that Scott discusses, that's fine. But I don't want to lead it down a path where we start in terms of, any sort of deliberations or endorsements or anything along those lines. So that's wanted to kind of set the stage for this. As we go through, and Scott has a presentation that he's going to walk through with us. Pat, did you have a question before we start it?
Yeah. Just because the siting council has the ultimate decision, that means it totally bypasses our procedures? I mean, we
Yes.
should have an application here regardless of whether it's the siting council that has the ultimate say, because we could say no and they can say yes, or we can say yes and they can say no. I mean, the town shouldn't be completely cut out of this. And I think in the past, if we've had things that the siting council had an ultimate jurisdiction on, that we have had applications for. Has this changed in the last year or so? I mean, everything else has, but has it changed?
I don't think anything has changed.
I'm not an attorney. I don't know, but in the past, we've gone through the procedures.
It's not a local decision that affirms what they do that falls under the guise of the siting council. And there's 3 items that do. And this is one of the 3 items specifically with the siting council. And there are issues that can be local in nature, but it doesn't fall into the planning and zoning category.
Land use has no jurisdiction in this whatsoever.
That is
So
correct.
they can plop this thing down in the middle of town hall there and it's okay.
Well, I think, I think that wouldn't be exactly right. I think the siting council would have some things to say about that, but, you know, if you, and whenever the siting council acts, there's always a decision that's being made, and that they accept public comment, and decisions that they make do take a lot of input, and that's the place where the public hearing takes place. And my understanding is the proponents of this information want to advise you what's happening, and also try to solicit support for it on a townwide basis. So they're doing information they don't have to do necessarily.
And it does, you know, it's not that I'm opposed to this necessarily. It's just that, you know, I don't like the idea of the entire town being just cut out.
I don't disagree with you.
State, you know?
Yeah,
Well,
unfortunately, Pat, that's the way the legislation is written. In fact, it vests for public utility siting. It vests that exclusive jurisdiction in the siting council, basically to avoid those situations, the NIMBA, where there's a public necessity, which is statewide. They don't let the local authority stand in the way if the public utility is able to demonstrate that statewide need. And, you know, with electricity generation, and this kind of falls into that. That's how the siting council is able to vest that jurisdiction away from those local agencies and put it in this statewide agency.
So everything we went through with the power plant and the gas compression station and all was not something we weren't supposed to do?
Yeah, the way I saw that is, you know, all those meetings, the public meetings that we had where we rejected the contracts with, that wouldn't have stopped them building it. That just meant we got less money. It's up to the siting council where that, because it's an electrical generation plant, where it goes. There are some ancillary matters that we do get to exercise control in, you know, like the placement of roads or access ways. I think I don't have the statute in front of me, unfortunately, I'm outside. So there are a couple of things that come back to local control, but I don't think that this particular project really has enough of those matters that we would exercise any say. But the time that we would get to have a hearing, if we were able to exercise control over this or certain aspects of it, is within 65 days after they make the application to the siting council. And that's by statute, and that hasn't happened yet. So, in fact, I think Steve McCary's on the line. I did ask, I forget your name, sir. I did ask you to address that particular part of the statute, which allows us to actually make some kind of decisions on your application. And I'm pretty sure that you answered that your project didn't fall within that range of a defined facility that allows for local control. So maybe you can touch on that too in your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Should I go ahead and get started?
Sure.
Okay, and I don't have control to share my screen. I don't know who can grant me that.
Jess is working on it right now.
Okay.
Did you try to share it yet?
Yes, and it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, let's see. Try it now.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, can you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm gonna make it bigger. Let me know if there's an issue. Give it a second.
It just went away.
Now, can you see it?
Nope.
I've had this issue in the past, so forgive me. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, perfect. So thank you all very much for joining me tonight. My name is Scott Connick. I work with a company called East Point Energy, and we're developing a project called the Oxford Energy Center. And one of the things I'll definitely be touching on is our relationship to the Siting Council and how all of that plays in. And I know I was asked to keep this to about 15 minutes, so I'm going to respect that and maybe give a bit of an abbreviated presentation so that we can make sure that we cover everything. But hopefully this presentation was shared with you beforehand. In terms of, our agenda, I wanted to introduce the project and who we are, talk about local permitting and the Siting Council, and then some of my questions for you all. And my ultimate objective is to make sure that I've introduced you guys properly to what we are developing, a grid scale battery storage system, which I'll explain in more detail. And ultimately, this might not happen tonight, but ultimately my goal would be to have support from the town prior to going before the Siting Council. And please jump in if you have any questions as we go along. But I'm trying to be brief. So the East Point Energy, my company, the owner of the Oxford Energy Center, is a Virginia-based energy storage project development firm. What our projects do is they connect to the electrical grid and help make the system more renewable, clean, resilient, and affordable. And we partner with a variety of different stakeholders to include utilities, local permitting commissions like yourselves, landowners, et cetera, to deploy these projects that benefit the grid and the environment. And I won't go into too much detail here because, again, trying to be quick on time, but in terms of our management team, we are not new to renewables. Our founders have worked in wind development, in solar development, and now for the last couple of years, we've been in grid scale energy storage development. And we've seen a lot of success. 1,500 megawatts of projects are currently operating in the United States. So what is grid scale battery storage? It's essentially a large battery system that connects directly to the grid, in this case, to Eversource's electrical substation. And it stores electricity from the grid and saves it for more valuable time. And it's the same technology, lithium ion battery technology that you find within cell phones and laptops and electric vehicles, just on a larger scale. And what the project does is it provides a variety of services to the grid. Some of the easiest to understand are it's a solution to wind and solar intermittency. So, the sun is not always shining when you need it, and sometimes it's shining too much when you don't need it. And so if you have batteries on the system, when there's solar being developed in the area in the region, then it can help balance that out. In addition, these projects reduce blackouts on the grid. They help meet the peak demand on the grid and help balance it out with the frequency regulation as well. What these projects generally do is they connect to electrical substations, and we are located right next to an Eversource substation near the airport. And the project itself does not generate any electricity. It takes electrons from the grid, which could come from a variety of sources, gas, solar, whatever, during off-peak periods, and then it saves it for a more valuable time, like a hot afternoon when everyone has their air conditioning going. I won't really go too much into this, but it was on the presentation that I sent ahead of time, and also on this slide, just why we are developing this project and why the economics make sense. In terms of an example battery storage project, oftentimes they come in metal containers that resemble shipping containers. So kind of 50-foot by 10 by 10 containers. They're single-story structures placed on top of a concrete pier or concrete pad. There would be some ancillary electrical equipment like transformer and some inverters, and then a wire would run over to the substation. In addition, it would have a screening buffer and a security fence as well. Or the screening buffer is an optional thing, but the security fence we always include. And this is just another picture. So this is a slightly different model from Tesla. It's not in the form of a shipping container, but it is similar dimensions. And these are essentially cabinets that hold the batteries. So the site we have in mind is on North Larkey Road. It's immediately adjacent to the airport to the northwest and the Eversource substation to the south. The parcel is 23 acres in size and zoned industrial 2. And right now we have an option to purchase the property from the private landowner, Dave Sippen, if any of you know him. And this is a preliminary site plan that we have for the project. So it would be a 17.3 megawatt 2-hour duration battery. So what you can see over here on your screen are the green containers, and the white containers are where the batteries would be held. The white ones are for augmentation. And then you have these gray, oh, I lost my mouse. There it is. These gray boxes as well. And I hope this is not too small, but that's where the transformers and inverters might be. And then it would be fenced in, and it could have a vegetative screen around it on all sides. And then a wire would run over to the Eversource substation right here and provide grid services at that location. So just kind of a high level overview of safety. When I talk to local officials like yourselves, normally the questions fall within, or the questions about safety fall into 2 buckets. One is environmental and the other is fire safety. So our project would have no air or water emissions other than typical stormwater that comes with any development. The batteries, again, are lithium ion batteries that are found within a variety of household and familiar technologies like cell phones. Our project is not in a flood zone. There's not any traffic once it's built. It can be screened. The sound is a low hum similar to the substation next door, which given its location, I don't think will be heard from any neighboring properties. And there's very minimal lighting involved with it. And that was a correction from the version I sent beforehand. There are wetlands on the property, but we plan on being at least 100 feet away from any wetlands. And then on the fire side, the risk of a fire occurring with one of these projects is very low. It's similar to the electrical substation next door. That's not to say that it is non-zero, which is why we take a number of different precautions with what we do. So the batteries are kept, again, within metal containers and enclosures that are inherently non-flammable, the enclosures. And each enclosure is equipped with a fire suppression system, a non-toxic fire suppression system. In addition, the groups of enclosures, as I kind of shared on this slide, are spaced apart, typically 10 feet, so that if there were to be an issue with one enclosure, it wouldn't spread to the neighboring one. And we would also include firefighter guidance for how to handle one of these electrical fires. Really quickly, and I left, this slide was not on the version I sent ahead of time either, but in terms of the benefits, we would provide new tax revenue. The property is currently undeveloped. Our project would help reduce blackouts, not only in the town of Oxford, but in some of the neighboring towns as well. Essentially, there's very little burden on local services. Again, the project is operated remotely. Other than some occasional maintenance, there's essentially no traffic. The project would largely be out of sight and out of mind. It's in an industrial area near a airport and electrical substation. It's not close to any other buildings. It helps make the grid more clean and renewable, as well as make the grid more affordable as well. So this brings me to the Siting Council. So as was discussed at the beginning, the Siting Council, and we have confirmed this with their attorney, has exclusive jurisdiction over the siting of energy projects like ours above 1 megawatt in size. And again, our project is about 17 megawatts. And while towns are consulted during this lengthy and costly process, the ultimate decision, for better or for worse, is made by the Siting Council. And the reason for that is to ensure adequate electrical and other infrastructure within the state. However, ultimately, while the decision is made by the Siting Council, the project is not going to be built without buy-in from the community. You know, if the town of Oxford says, no way, Jose, this is not a suitable site for this project, you know, the Siting Council is going to take that very seriously. And so what we are looking for is, you know, support from your commission and from the town in general for our application, which may go in a few months. And so my question, and I realize I may have opened up some questions for you guys, and I know I'm almost out of time, is, you know, would you ever consider signing, you know, a very short letter that says you would be supportive of this project? And is that something? Yeah, I mean, I guess I would leave it there.
Dave, you're on mute.
Thank you for somebody reminding me to click the button. Yeah, Scott, I'm not going to answer that question, Ted. I think that's something we want to discuss offline with our council. So I'm not going to, I don't want to lead you on and say, yes, we would, or no, or decline and say, no, we wouldn't. I just think that's something we need to kind of talk about. And, you know, I think we also need to, you know, kind of better understand, you know, in terms of support, what are the benefits? I understand you went through some high level types of benefits, but what are the, you know, what are direct benefits to the town itself, you know, along those lines? So I'm not sure if that comes from revenue or something along those lines, or this is going to be power that exclusively is for, we'll keep Oxford running during, you know, power strain, or is that going to a grid that's going to be going across the state? I mean, there's different things like that that we would all, I'd be interested in, you know, as a resident, you know, for an elected official before they made any sort of recommendation.
Understood.
And Pat, I'm just going to, before I jump on, Pat, you had a quick question?
Yes. What is the, I can't think of the proper term, but what is the total cost to build this project?
That is an excellent question. And I don't know if I can give you an exact answer off the top of my head. I can get one for you afterwards. It is a capital intensive project. It would be, well, it would be over 10 million, but I would need to come back to you to get a better idea. The technology is evolving very quickly and the cost is coming down.
I was thinking it would be in the range of 30 to 40 million.
I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, so let me get back to you.
Yeah, I really think we should have that number.
While you're at it, Pat, why don't we just ask for 100 million?
No. We're not getting this money.
I understand.
No.
I understand.
And, you know, again, looking at other projects and stuff, I do some research on energy, and, you know, it's usually around 2 million a megawatt, you know, so that's a quick, you know.
And I guess a follow-up on that. A follow-up on that question would be, Scott, do you enter into agreements with municipalities to pay a certain amount of money towards taxes rather than paying the cost of the energy construction? And we know that happens with certain segments. Has that happened with your company?
Yeah, so that's also a good question. That is something I'm currently exploring with economic development right now. I don't have an answer worked out. I know that there's some confusion about the airport development zone and whether or not that may affect our project. But it's something I'm still researching.
Thank you.
Hey, Scott. Dave, do you mind if I ask a
Yeah,
question?
absolutely. Go ahead.
So I don't know if you addressed this, and if you did, I apologize. But where does this sit with the siting council at this point? Like, what's the current status of it? Is it on the docket for the siting council? Do you have it anticipated? You know, because I saw somewhere in the documents that the expected coming online would be like the 2023. So that means, you know, you've got to have some idea working backwards when construction would start, when you'd be getting the approvals, et cetera. So any background information with respect to those questions?
Yeah, so we have not submitted the project to the siting council. We are still working on some of the environmental work for the property and some of the engineering studies with Eversource. It's possibly in kind of the 5 or 6 month range we would go to the siting council with an application in hopes of being fully operational by kind of early to mid 2023. Did that answer your question?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else on the commission have any questions they wanted to throw out there?
Well, I do have one other question.
Just see if anybody else real quick first. All right, hearing none, go ahead, Brett.
So so when we had the power plant built here in Oxford, there was a lot of pushback from residents because, of course, power plants being dirty energy, et cetera. You know, that was the reasoning for fighting against it in many cases. Do you typically have issues related to towns, residents, whatever you want to determine, or however you want to define it, that fight against something like this?
From an environmental perspective, no. So the project has no air or water emissions, and it's considered kind of a clean energy technology. And the state of Connecticut is looking to promote grid scale energy storage like this. There have definitely been in other scenarios, you know, questions about aesthetics, but I think this area being industrial lends itself to a project like this.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Scott, do you anticipate a public hearing at the siting council, or will you fall in a category that doesn't require a public hearing? What do you anticipate?
Yeah, so if this project goes before the siting council, at least as of today, it would be the first grid scale energy storage project in front of them. And so with my conversations with them, they say, yes, definitely expect a public hearing for this.
Thank you.
Oh,
One other question. Sorry, Dave, unless
That's
anybody else. Any reason why you selected Oxford? If this is going to be the first grid scale energy project, I'm assuming in the state. I don't know if that's true, but if so, why Oxford?
Yeah, so we are looking to develop a couple other sites in Connecticut. Part of it has to do with the regional market for electricity throughout all of New England. And so Connecticut is generally a priority for us. But in addition, I think the amount of industrial space and kind of in the right location is one of the driving reasons for us. In addition, this node or this area has somewhat higher values for energy arbitrage as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the commission have any questions for Scott?
no.
Okay. Hey, Scott, thank you very much for the information and for taking the time tonight to kind of go through this. I think there was a couple takeaways, in terms of, from Pat's questions, in terms of, the dollars along those lines. And, we can definitely, follow up, on those as well too. But I think this is a good intro to, heads up in terms of what's happening, and gives us a chance to kind of, see what's going on. So I look forward to, continued conversations.
Thank you. And just one follow-up question, in terms of when I should follow up with you, should I give it a few weeks or a month before touching base, except for sending some of these additional resources?
I would say probably give it a month, and then we can kind of see where we are at that point. Pat?
Yeah, I would definitely like some answers to our questions, though.
Exactly, which is, when he said if he has to follow up with that, I think 2 weeks would be too soon. So I think a month is fair.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it too. Enjoy your night.
You too.
All right. Thanks, everybody. In terms of other business, I had 2 other quick things I wanted to talk to you about. First is in regards to our meetings. My last update with the first selectman's office is that they were looking at a way of being able to change these meetings away from virtual after June 1st. I did not have any details at that point, but it is, a hot and heavy topic in terms of doing it. I know some of the smaller commissions have done something at Jackson's Cove and some alternate places or whatever, but for the most part, the meetings are being still held virtually. So we all know what the mandate is for, starting tomorrow. So that's why I think looking after, or hopefully even beginning June 1st, I'd love to be the guinea pig to be the first one to come back in person. But that's something that's out there with with the Board of Selectmen right now. So just want to let you know that it's being asked and followed up on a regular basis. The other thing I wanted to talk to you for a couple of minutes about is something that was in the materials packet. This is going to be the policies of the Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission. I have to confess, Jess showed me this a few weeks ago. It was the first time I had seen it. And looking at the dates, it looks like it hasn't really been touched. And, we agree it hadn't been touched in quite a while. Last revised in February of 1996. So it's a very short read. And what I'd like to do for those that want to take an active part in this is, over the next couple of weeks, take a quick read through and look at it and mark it up with any things, suggested revisions, and get that feedback back to me, and copy Jess on it as well too. And I'd like to come back with, the ideas and present them and see ways that we can update this and make this a little bit more current. I'm not looking at trying to create a 30 or 40 page document, because I think that kind of defeats the purpose and makes things even more discombobulated. But there's a lot of things in here that can that can certainly be cleaned up and tightened up the language and everything. So before the next meeting, if everybody who wants to, I'm not going to require everybody to actually do it, but for those that are interested, I'm certainly going to do it, and Jess is certainly going to do it. But if you want to, mark it up with questions or ideas or suggestions, get it back over to us. We can kind of pull it all together and bring it back in front of everybody to take a closer look at, and get this into get this much more updated than what it is right now. So I wanted to throw that out to you as well too. Jess, did you want to give any comments you wanted to add on to it as well? Pat, I see. I just wanted to get with Jess real quick.
No, I figure, let everyone read through it. Like you said, it's a pretty quick read.
Yeah.
And see what they say.
Exactly. Thank you. Pat, go ahead. Sorry.
Some time ago, Commissioner Zabras and I had done some work to start rewriting these things. And it kind of fell into the same black hole that our regulations fall into. It just, nobody paid any attention to it after the first week. But there should be some notes already that we had worked on. Is that correct, Pete?
You're on mute.
Pete.
Pete, you're on mute. You there now, Pete?
No, I'm just having trouble.
Pat, if there are notes, I'd be definitely be interested in seeing them.
Yeah,
And-
I'm sure I could dig them up that from our previous, because I mean, I used to meet at town hall and work on these things.
I'd love to take a peek and see what you two had put together. I think that'd be great. And in terms of, using
Yeah,
them going
Nick.
forward, I think Jess will be the first person to raise her hand and say Dave's a pain in the neck when it comes to following things by the, to a T or whatever like that. So, yeah, it's something where, for example, we already talked about the regulations being on Tuesday, or not the regular, the amendments, agenda topics have to be in here by the Tuesday before. And we kind of already started doing that. And that's what I want to make sure is clearly reflected in here. And, yeah, I talked to a few people in town about that who might have stuff that might come through us and making sure they're aware, and they're like, wow, Tuesday, a week before. I said, yeah, that's the way it's going to be. It's the only way that we can properly manage it, and it allows us to work more efficiently by having those in place. So yes, Pat, I'm going to be a pain in the neck about making sure that we follow them.
Yeah, but just,
Great
like
observation.
I said, it's just, we've all got other lives. That's the problem. I mean, and I'm sure, I mean, I'm retired, so I probably have a little more time than most people, but
Mhm.
everybody else has got jobs and stuff they have to do. So it's difficult. And I
Oh, yeah.
understand that. So I'm not criticizing. It's just, we've had a number of things that we started with, like the upgrade to the audio and video system in the meeting room that Pete spent a lot of time on, and it got, shelved somewhere, and it's never been heard from again. I mean, he went out and got bids and everything else, and it just disappeared.
That sounds like it was even before my time.
Yes, it was.
Something to go back and revisit. Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of different things we can go back and revisit, but I picked this honestly because it looked pretty straightforward. Like Jess said, it's a quick read, and I think we
It's a
can.
great start. I'm not criticizing, please.
Oh, no, I know you're not. I know you're not, and I appreciate it because you're making some great points. But yeah, so I think this is something that we can do. So before the next meeting, everybody, if you have some time, I'm not saying everybody has to do it, but if you have some time, put some notes on there, get it back over to us. Pete, if you can find the notes that were done from whenever in the past, that would be great to kind of include in there as well too. And then we'll reconvene. I figured this was a good lull, in the agenda to kind of put this on here to kind of talk about it, because who knows what our agendas are going to look like in the coming months with different things that are happening. So let's start with this. Let's see here. Okay, so Mr. McSherry, Attorney McSherry, looking at Moose Hill or Riverview, I just wanted to touch base again. There might not be any updates, but wanted to reach out and
I do have an update on Moose Hill. I did speak with Attorney McTaggart,
Okay.
who represents was the applicant in the approved application, and they're still waiting for the Board of Selectmen to take some steps. And I also spoke with Kevin Condon briefly, and they're still thinking about it. So it's for us, it's hurry up and wait. And on Riverview, they're still just trying to decide what they want to do.
Got it. Well, thank you for staying on top of it, and it's staying in the forefront. I'm glad the ball's in their court, so we can kind of wait for them to get back to us. But I'm glad you're watching it for us. So thank you.
You're welcome.
To the commission itself, is there anything else that we need to bring up that necessary for discussion? Okay, not hearing anything. Then at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Pat, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Dan Wall. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hope to see all of you physically in person in June. So take care, and we'll see what happens. We'll talk to you soon.
Good
Hey,
night.
guys.